And then for MR, click the links for Odyssey, bitches, push out, subscribe, start the various other ways to join Chump, become a member, get access to the unlisted videos for members only. So, the funny thing about like fads come and go, the health at every size thing was a fad like 5 years ago, and it definitely came and went. It just got so ridiculous. Partially because people were suffering health issues from it. They're very obvious when some health at every size activist tries to complain that a cancer researcher said that obesity had relations to cancer, and so that's not politically correct. And scientists is all, what do you want me to do about that? If you're at the point where you're denying reality, well, you're headed for very dark days. So health at every size kind of passed away, no pun intended, where I guess it wasn't intended. Without a sound and a whimper, but probably with a lot of cats eating well. And it kind of got replaced by something else, the soup du jour, which turned out to be the BLT stuff. And then that kind of progressed into the tea of the BLT stuff. So this actually isn't about that at all. But I was looking for a picture of what an SJW influencer looks like. And an influencer, in case you don't remember, is something like, if you remember algebra, where there's those function box, you input something, it goes in f of x equals y. You input a value, and it comes out a value, a new value. So that's what an SJW influencer is. A localizer, sorry. So with localizers, you have the source, and then it goes to an SJW localizer, and then out of that function box comes SJW propaganda. And people who are receiving at the other end of that propaganda are looking around at the original source material and going, wait a minute, this is why subs better than dub. I guess it doesn't really matter either way. It's like, really, you're probably just better off learning how to speak Japanese at that point. So with SJWs, I was going to keep in mind keynodes, choke points, nexus points, infrastructure, and the equivalents in the digital world is things like moderators and editors. SJWs are very desperate to get into positions of power where you can exercise a disproportionate control, act as a filter between what the audience. It's the same old story. People start something, they build something. That meme, it's the 4-box meme of they start something and they say, oh, you got to include us, and then they include us, and then they kick you out, and then you start something new, and you realize, like, no, we're just gonna have to keep out the SJWs because they ruin anything they touch. They're just, that's why they're kind of like ticks and leeches, really. So Japan has its own way of doing things, and clearly has better comics than anything coming from the mainstream Marvel and DC. Like, it's not even on the same page in the same world, and it's not even fair to try to compare the two of them. It's just like American mainstream comics are just such a crude insult when you look at the grace and elegance of stuff that's coming from overseas. And then, the thing is, now it's like you got access to comics all over the world. You look at the Japanese stuff, you look at American stuff, you're like, wait a minute, what the hell's going on? Why are these Americans still putting this stuff out? It's like, hey, we sold 7,000 copies. Japanese like, yeah, we sold 7 million. So, suck our lychee nuts. So anything comics coming from America, anything from the mainstream, it's going to be nothing but globalist propaganda. Mainstream Japan is better in every way because mainstream America is a Marxist hellhole of stifling creativity and just pushing garbage, just propaganda that really does not result in sales. And they just keep it results in hurting an industry and closing retail shops. But it's like, oh, it's a smaller industry, but it's purified. Yeah, that's a really new way of. See, in their mind, I think they're hoping they can force you to buy it one day in the future. It's like, well, you're gonna be waiting a long time for that. So, American mainstream markets to a Bolshevik kind of a guideline. There's always like a political commissar whenever the mainstream American stuff, anything corporate, like once it gets big enough to have a What, human resources? That's the joke. It's like, yeah, human resources type of stuff. Editors, moderators, human resource people, people who are ombudsmen, people who are in those positions. It's like you really want to have somebody, fair and level-headed and conservative-minded. And I don't mean that political way, but I mean very level-headed and calm. Like, so what do we have? Oh, we have a 300-pound blue-haired cat lady as our human resources person. She's the mediator. Arbitration, mediation. Oh, that's really not what you want. You want someone more like me. Oh, that's just not no, it's cool. Check it out. I identify as a chick. Problem solved. And like, oh, you're right. That is problem solved on paper. That's how easy it is. Anyway, so America crap goes to a political commissar, Saul Alinsky's guidelines sort of thing. Well, Japan just markets to the market. What a novel concept. So if you look at the Japanese characters, what do you see? Fair skin, light hair and eyes, because that's what people want. It's kind of an elf version of a vaguely European person because it's attractive and it has good associations. And I'm sure, the American Marvel and DC, these just idiots sit around and go, oh, we need to make something like this for American audiences. And you know what they turn it into? It's just like, oh, this doesn't look like the original Japanese stuff. Yeah, we're updating it for American audience. But you made it worse. What are you saying we made it worse? Make it look like the Japanese. Oh, we can't do that. They're too fair. They're too fair skinned. We can't do that. Then what? Don't bother in the first place if you're just gonna come. Oh, we're gonna make a Ferrari for the. We're gonna do our version of Ferrari. Oh, okay. Good luck with that. It's like $300,000 car. There's a lot of effort a lot of tech goes into that. A lot of artistry too. Yeah. We're gonna make it like a 100 horsepower hybrid. Oh, okay. Then I mean, like seriously, what's the color of the sky in your world when these people try to do this kind of stuff? Because that's literally what they do. So Japan makes beautiful things. America makes ugly things. Because Japan is Japan and America is a commercial zone run by parasites. Comicsgate is actually very important because what did it do? It's openly saying the mainstream is so bad that it's better to make your own comics. And yeah, that was the obvious answer all along. It's odd that nobody came up with that earlier. Look at this localizer, made a character trans. That's a headline. It doesn't really matter. It's like anything SJW localizer touches is going to be destroyed. Look at the simple beauty of this. America comic mainstream. Keep in mind, I'm not. Comicsgate is Konnichiwa #1. Mainstream couldn't do this. What are you talking about? Couldn't. If you don't know comics, you don't know the industry, you're not following the culture war. I go, no, literally, they couldn't do this. He's got strawberry blonde hair, I guess, ish, and blue eyes, and she's got hazel eyes, and I don't know what kind of hair there's, light brown, and they're both fair, elfish Europeans vaguely. You go, wait, mainstream comics couldn't do this? Like, just have characters that look like this? No, they literally could not do it. It goes through that function box of they come out, they go in vaguely European elf characters or whatever. I don't know what you want to ascribe to them, but then they come out looking very different. You know what they look like, very, 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 very different. You go, oh, well, won't that sell just as well? Well, let me slow it down for you, SGW. The Japanese stuff sold because it's this, and you can scratch beneath the surface and follow these tenuous, we're at the nucleus of the argument here. You want to go out tangentially from it to bring in all these other arguments of why people want this, the psychology and the anthropology of it. It's like, or you can just skip that and go, this is what sells. These beautiful creatures, these beautiful art. And the American SGW goes, yeah, we just can't do that. They literally cannot do that in the mainstream. Once you get big, so what I was saying is, like, once you get big enough to have human resources, you start kind of like collapsing under your own weight of SJW external pressure from Twitter and stuff. Though, I mean, really, you don't have to. Like, if you want to just ignore the social media, like if an American company want to do this kind of stuff and ignore social media and just not be on social media, or not answer, SJWs, and not just not deal with them, just not give interviews with SJW reporters and stuff like this. Like, why don't you guys diversify it? Just don't give those interviews. You'd be fine. You could, if you wanted to just ignore SJWism, you absolutely could. It's like you create something that sells, create something beautiful. Like if some Comicsgate project got big and started to blow up and went mainstream, and they started to the Twitter SJWs were looking at some characters. Like, oh, it's not a translation, not enough. The characters are too fair. They need to be, the opposite of that. And you just ignored them. You go, well, this is what I created. This is the creation. This is the art. These are the original characters. If you change, it's like Star Wars. If you change it, it's something different, and it's not something that was the original thing that sold. Oh, yeah, and the SJW just doesn't flat out get that. It's like they've reached this point of it. There's this loop in their brain where they just... all you have to do is go, listen, SJWs, why don't you just make your own thing? Oh. To be fair, sometimes they do. They make some SJW art project, and it's all, furry, pox, walks, otherkin, nose piercings, tattooed, blue-haired, shaved side of the head. Just like a walking, talking SJW cliche. And they market it on Kickstarter, and it's like the first one sells a little bit, and then after that, it's like, oh, it just kind of doesn't. Like Deadbeats or Kwanzaa's, comic. It's like, yeah, the first one will sell a little bit, but it's like it's just not going to go anywhere from there because fundamentally people don't want it. They want this kind of stuff. Anyway, so Japanese manga and Comicsgate is so radically different from the American mainstream cancer. So you wonder why somebody didn't start, like, I don't know, right-wing or moderate versions of things a long time ago? Probably because the gatekeeper SJWs on Twitter would try to destroy it. Vox Day has a comic book site, and the guy's actually a great writer. He has some kind of involvement with some science fiction awards, and a bunch of blue-haired weirdos tried to destroy him. I don't know if that was the Hugo Awards, but if you can find the images of the Hugo Awards for different years, going back over the past 10 years, they're blue-haired, on the heavier side weirdos. Like all the Hugo Award winners. And if you've followed science fiction over the past 100 years, it's not what writers have typically look like. They've just been normal dudes, type of thing. So I know arguing about some people, but you got to look at the you look at the people, they have the right enemies. You look at the people attacking them, and you kind of know that they're doing something right, even if you don't know anything else about them. You just kind of